Mi gente, you already know who it is. It's Danny Limelight. And I need all of you to subscribe to According to Woods podcast on Facebook, YouTube, and all other platforms.
What's good, party people? This is According to Woods, and I have the honor and privilege of talking to somebody that you guys should know. Obviously, he is a Afterbuzz TV host. He is a man about town DJing some of the biggest places that there is in LA and other places. He is the one and only Jack Farmer. Jack, what's going on, my man?
Man, I am living the dream right now. Thank you so much for having me on. All sorts of fun stuff to chat about and all sorts of fun stuff going on. Danny Limelight in your intro there. I'm a big fan of Danny Limelight's. He was one of the first people I got to chat with at United Wrestling Network. So very cool plug there.
Yeah, man. Danny's been on the show, and as an outro, I had like Zeta Zhang, former NXT, and she's still on the outro, right? But she's a friend, and he was just like, "Yo, I can do an intro for you." I was like, "Cool." And this is right as he was making his AEW debut. And I think it was that week where he was both on Primetime Live, United Wrestling Network's Primetime Live, as well as AEW Dark. So it was cool. And the first podcast that I got to do that week, I got to use both intros. So that was kind of cool.
That works out great. Yeah, his stock is rising right now. He's doing some really good things here to round out 2020. And I have a feeling I always like to think if you buy stock in wrestlers, who would you buy and who would you sell right now? Danny Limelight, I think, is one of those guys that you buy stock in him, and it's going to pay off very, very quickly in the next couple of years.
No, 1,000%. And I mean, just think about this year. And obviously this year has been crazy for a lot of us, a lot of people in general, whether it be health-wise, finances, occupational security or lack thereof. Here's a guy who has appeared for not just, United Wrestling Network's Primetime Live, New Japan's Lions Break, and AEW. So the only places that he hasn't shown up is like NXT or Impact Wrestling, and that could happen in 2021.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the sky's the limit for him. I think he's got so much talent. He's so good in the ring. He's so good on a microphone. He's such a fun person to watch. So, like I said, if I could buy stock in wrestlers, if there's a way to do that, I would be buying Danny Limelight stock right now.
Well, you're a smart man. You almost feel like the investor that probably got into Neo stock in about like $4 a share at the beginning of the year. But
well, I'm not always right. That's the problem. There are definitely times where I've been wrong, but usually it's because I'm like, there's no way this person's going to be a star, and then they become a star, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, I guess they're a star too.
Yeah, no. Well, this one I feel you have it right 100%, but I mean, you're big in obviously all things pro wrestling. I mean, having done your tenure with United Wrestling Network amongst other things. So I want to know, like, how did you get in, I guess, interested in pro wrestling as a fan or otherwise?
Yeah, as a fan, way back in the day, my cousin Matt, he would bring over tapes of wrestling shows when I was a little kid, right? And I remember my earliest watching wrestling, being a fan memory is the Royal Rumble where Ric Flair won. And I'm really bad about remembering years and like the numbers of which one that was, but it was the one that Ric Flair won. And the thing 92. I remember, that was 93. I knew it was like
92, yeah.
Or 92, 93. I knew it was like one of those earlier years. But anyways, what's funny is the thing I remember most in that moment is being very confused at the end and thinking, why is Hulk Hogan being such a sore loser? Like, I don't know if you remember the end of that Royal Rumble, but I remember thinking, what are you doing? I'm this like little kid, and I'm like, why are you being a sore loser, Hulk Hogan? What are you doing? And it didn't make any sense to me. And because that was like my first real memory, I guess, of it. The whole point of Ric Flair going the distance and winning it was lost on me at the time. It was more like, Hulk, why can't, like, you're supposed to lose graciously. What are you doing? But that's what really got me started into it. And then I always say the thing that kind of got me hook, line, and sinker as a fan was the entire NWO storyline and watching that unfold in WCW, and the, you know, who's the third man, and then the who's the fourth man. And you know, as Sting just came back on AEW, one of my favorite things is Sting in the NWO and fake Sting and that whole situation. And so that's what really got me as a fan, totally hook, line, and sinker into wrestling. And it's kind of had its grips on me ever since.
Now, I mean, those are awesome. And if you're ever to jump into a Rumble, I mean, 92, I mean, for the time, you had, I mean, we're talking AWA champions, former AWA champions, and like Rick Martel. You've got, you know, Kerry Von Erich, the Texas Tornado. I mean, the litany, the cavalcade of stars that were just in that Royal Rumble alone. It's just like, I mean, most of them, I would say out of 30, like 20 of them, or at least in one Hall of Fame, if not the WWE Hall of Fame for all of them in the years since.
Yeah, it's always interesting going back and watching old Rumbles and being either, wow, this one was stacked, or who are all these people in some cases. In that Rumble, I remember I was, and I guess I still am, a huge Sid Vicious fan. So I wanted him to win. I was really, maybe that's why I was so bummed out that Hulk Hogan was being a sore loser, because he cost him the match. To this day, Hulk Hogan, you cost Sid the match. But I'm a massive Ric Flair fan too, so I'm okay with that. I'm a Hulk Hogan fan as well, as far as I was an NWO guy, so of course I was a Hollywood Hogan fan, I guess, more than anything.
Now, I mean, did you get any of Flair, like at that 92 Rumble, did you kind of know who Flair was? Or was it just like, for me, I was just like, oh, wait, an old dude with like fancy robes. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah, I at that time, I got more the idea of Flair than knowing who he was at the time. So like, I knew he was someone important. I knew he was someone that had won titles, but I didn't really like know the history or to your point, yeah, it was kind of like an old dude in robes at the time. But that's why I liked Sid Vicious, I think, is because Sid Vicious was just a massive, intimidating looking dude. So I think that's why I liked him.
No, that works. I mean, he was the ruler of the world. I mean,
Yeah.
to some extent, he kind of still is.
Yeah, I like I said, I was always a fan of his, and so I liked his run through ECW. I liked his WCW run. I like WCW to the very end. So I was one of the few people that watched it all the way through. So he was always just such a I was always such a like, I like that he's so Sid Vicious that I don't know. I've always like the master ruler of the world thing. I don't know. I liked it. I like that kind of stuff.
No, 100%. And Bad Blood, BJ Darden says, "What's poppin', guys? What's up?" And yeah, man. And you can catch BJ, or Bad Blood, as he's known around circles, at BCW Worldwide on YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook. I believe he's gonna rip me to shreds if I didn't get that right. I've been on more than a couple times, so he's gonna rip me to shreds. And
cool.
my Ric Flair assessment. No, this is Ric Flair 92. Like I mean, I saw the primetime, stuff with obviously Bobby Heenan, and anytime that Bobby Heenan was attached to something, I was like, oh my goodness. And then a big gold belt, right? That to me, it rivals the winged eagle that they were, the WWF basically they had entrusted or enlisted as their championship belt at the time. And I was just like, oh wait, cool belt. And that's when I knew I was a belt mark. And I've got like a California State amateur title here. I've got a replica of the WWE version of the big gold belt here. So yeah, I was like, oh,
I am a massive fan of the big gold belt. That's my favorite. I think we froze up a little bit on my end anyways.
I'm a belt mark.
Here, let me refresh here. I think I'm frozen here.
Hi, yes. Had a little bit of a internet interruption on my end, it seems like, but we're waiting for the real Jack Farmer, not the fake one. We're not talking about NWO Sting. We're talking about like yeah, what's good? So there was a little bit of internet interruption, but we're getting to your questions. Wait, here's Jack Farmer.
There we go.
Hey, there you
Okay, we're
go.
back.
We did it.
We're back. Sorry about that. The internet, it's trying to stop the train, but we're gonna keep going.
Hopefully, it's not like the ice train because that dude just jobbed the hell out in WCW Worldwide. Speaking of all things worldwide, and so
Yeah.
hopefully we're not like the ice train.
Ice Train, my favorite part about him was when he teamed with Scott Norton. Scott Norton was a favorite of mine for a long time. I like that we're going through some deep cut WCW talk, by the way.
Oh, we go down wormholes on this podcast. I'm just saying, weren't they called? Were they Fire and Ice? Because of
Fire and Ice, yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Scott Flash Norton of New Japan fame and arm wrestling champion. That's over the top AF. To have Scott Norton in it, and then I don't know, was he like one of like Hulk Hogan? I know Urs Mulder was a Hulk Hogan like family member, but was Scott Norton as well?
Norton was in the NWO, but he wasn't like pitched as like family to Hogan, but he was he was in the NWO. He's one of my favorites. He became one of my favorites though because he was in the WCW NWO World Tour game and he had a choke slam and a power bomb, so he was my favorite character to play as. And then that transitioned into TV. He was barely on TV, but whenever he was on, it was always just like quick, just destroying people and then leaving, and then he'd be off TV for like 2 months, then he'd come back and do it again. But I always really loved him because I don't know, he's just a big barrel of a person.
Yeah.
So I always really liked him.
I think those barrel chested brawlers, like I think at the time, right? We're obviously there have been, when I get into my fandom, there's like the Crusher and the Bruiser. They were literally like the archetype of barrel chested bruisers, pardon the pun. But But theoretically speaking, like I mean, Vader was the guy, right? Barrel chested, just like look like. I mean, literally like a mountain with a neck. Well, no neck, actually. So I was just like, hey, like Flash Norton is probably going to moonsault like Vader. And I had my fear, like my dreams and hopes dashed pretty considerably because he didn't even leave his feet at all.
No, not at all. But yeah, Vader was great too. The Mastodon. I always loved him as a kid, especially when he came out with that helmet thing. Yes. The Mastodon helmet. I always called it a Mastodon. I don't even know what a real Mastodon. Are Mastodons real? I don't even know what a Mastodon is. I'm so uneducated in real world things here. Sorry, my dog is barking at the mailman here. But how dare the mailman try to deliver anything during a podcast? I've always I always loved Vader too because he just looked cool. I'm very easy to impress in the wrestling world. I thought Vader looked cool, and you're right. He was just one of these big monsters that just beat people up left and right. So I was a huge fan of his as well. But I noticed you're wearing a Bret Hart t-shirt, and Bret Hart growing up was my all-time favorite. I loved Bret Hart. I loved the fact that he was like a smart wrestler, and he wasn't oversized. I always felt like he was regular sized, so I liked him because I felt like I was regular sized as a person. even though now as an adult, I know he was probably massive compared to most people, but that's the one thing I've learned over the years is every wrestler is just massive. They're just huge, way bigger than you think they are. But at the time I thought, hey, he's like me. He's a normal sized person and he's wrestling smart. So I can identify with that. And so I always really liked him.
No, I mean, my firstborn child, his name is Owen.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, I mean, thankfully my wife let that fly. You know, and I mean, I went hard in the paint. It's like Owen James. Like the only thing that's different is Hart because Brett didn't go with Woods as well. So.
Yeah, that's I was a huge fan of the whole Hart family. I'll be honest, I was Team Brett in the breakup, but I mean I loved that whole the Hart Foundation. I loved Owen as well. I mean, how can you not, especially if you grew up during those times?
Yeah, to me, my favorite WrestleMania is the WrestleMania 10, right? And not just because it involves Brett and Owen, you know, but there was like a sequential storyline interwoven throughout that tied in the Royal Rumble. And I think that was like one of the first times that, you know, you essentially got, if you won the Rumble, you would essentially get the main event of WrestleMania. They started employing that particular clause right around there, right? So for me, you have Brett and Owen, which to me is still the greatest opening match in WrestleMania history. I can watch it, you know, in 2020 and it doesn't lose its luster, right? And then you're tying in, you know, obviously Lex Luger and Bret Hart's, you know, they simultaneously went over the top and touched the floor, even though that's a little bit hyperbole, but you got it. You know, as like a 7-year-old kid, you're like, oh my God, that's never happened ever, right? And then you basically get, you know, Bret and Lex, and then, you know, Bret, pardon the pun, but trumping Lex, and then moving into the main event of WrestleMania where he defeats Yokozuna. And like, how do you beat a giant? We were talking about giants earlier, but the way he did it was so clever. And I mean, Yoko didn't lose any of his steam either. He was still massive despite dropping the title. And I just, you know, and then Owen coming out as everybody from the Steiners, the Macho Man, and Roddy Piper, who was the referee, you know, basically lifting, you know, Bret on the shoulders, and Owen walks out and then scowls. Like, and I remember Macho Man like literally inviting Owen to the ring, like literally sitting on the ropes, and I was just like, Macho doesn't do that for anyone. Like, holy hell. Like, those guys were, I think when Owen beat Bret was one of the first times, and still to this day, one of the biggest emotional, like, because again, I was a Team Bret guy, so that was my most like angry, like, what? No, Bret's the older brother. How dare they? You know, like where I got really like worked up about it in a good way, but like, you know, like as a fan, you know, you get like, what? No, that, you know, because especially when you watch wrestling for a long time, you kind of just roll with the punches. But I remember that one being one that really stuck in my craw in a good way, where I was like, no, my guy lost. I can't believe it. You know, so, but it was just one of those magical kind of moments for me as a fan. But yeah, so many of those good moments back in the 90s. It's funny how we look back. There was a lot of times during the 90s where everyone says things weren't good for wrestling back in the 90s, but now we look back with such fond memories. And it's funny as time goes on, you know, even as recently as like John Cena, people would poo-poo all over John Cena, but now that he's not around so much, everyone's like, John Cena was one of the best of all time. How are they going to replace him? And it's funny how when you look back on it, you always look back on it so much better than sometimes when we watch it currently and we complain about everything we see. Yeah, well, I mean, I will pick John Cena over Roman Reigns any day, and I'm, you know, not to throw shade, right? We kind of took a detour, but the thing about it is, like, I'm essentially half American descendant of slaves, and half my mom is from Fiji, right? So half Fijian, right? So I'm like, half Melanesian, half, you know, Italian or what have you, son of wild Samoan and everything. I should be in for Roman, but like I also grew up in Inglewood, right? So how can you really wear a SWAT vest and gear, have arguably one of the worst theme songs ever. And I mean, I think all of the Shield guys,
Yeah.
their theme songs are pretty atrocious, and like, damn, I miss Jim Johnston, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? But and
Those
then
guitar riffs from Jim Johnson.
yes. I mean, from Warrior to Brad to like, oh, I could go on and on. But yeah, it's, and then the fact that he dresses in like a full SWAT gear, and he has a move called the drive-by. I'm like, huh? And that might be
Yeah.
the hood kind of like these things don't go together.
Yeah, I think with him, I think it didn't do him any favors that while Ambrose and Rollins completely broke away from the Shield when the Shield broke up, and Reigns kept so much of it, I don't think did him any favors. I think Reigns will be looked at as a massive star once all is said and done, but right now, I mean, I don't know how you rank your wrestlers, but I mean, John Cena's up there with the all-timers. So there's no hard feelings if you're not ahead of John Cena when all is said and done. But it is, like I said, looking back, I think even guys like as Brock Lesnar, his time is winding down. People who didn't like the part-time aspect of him are starting to even come around and go, yeah, but he's done quite a bit in his time. I'm a huge Brock fan, though, so maybe I'm biased there. I'm a broccoli, the head of the Brock flock, I always like to say.
I love it. That's the first time I've ever heard that. I instantaneously love it. But for me, I don't. So one of the reasons why I went like deep into like covering MMA and not so much like my love for pro wrestling was like, so I met in Bakersfield. We were living in Bakersfield at the time, and my wife is from there, Bakersfield, California. And I saw Randy Orton at an Arco, like right before a TV taping, right? And
yeah,
I was like, hey, this is like pre, like selfie camera, whatever. And I was like, can I get an autograph? And he was like, fuck off. And I was like, oh. Now, the next week, I met Shane Carwin, literally like a week removed. Like Saturday, he fought Brock Lesnar at UFC 100, and the following Saturday, he did a signing at a Max Muscle supplement shop in Bakersfield, in the same kind of commercial property where I worked. And I met him, and it was just like complete like dichotomy of the Orton deal, right? And I was like, oh, I fucking love MMA now,
Yeah.
So that's the thing. So for me, like I was like, okay, somebody that has done both pro wrestling and MMA, yeah, Brock is awesome, right? And then I saw that there was a video that circulated a couple years ago of like a little girl like kind of tugging at Brock for a picture and whatever, and he just like no sells her at all. And I was like, I'm good.
Have those experiences changed the way you view them in the ring? Do you look at Randy Orton differently now?
Oh, yeah. I wasn't. The last time I was a Randy Orton fan was when he was doing he had broken his arm or shoulder or something like that, separated his shoulder, and he was doing the promo like with the long hair, or like kind of long hair, like
long for Randy Orton.
Yeah, that was it. And then I think after Evolution, I didn't see it.
Really interesting.
Yeah.
I think he's up there. I am a big Randy Orton fan, but he hasn't said anything to me at any gas station, so maybe that's the difference maker there.
That might be it. That might be it. That's that could be it.
I've been very fortunate. I mean, I haven't met a ton of wrestlers in person, but I've been pretty fortunate, and the ones I have talked to have all been pretty good to me, pretty nice. So I don't have any negative stories of wrestlers that I've come across, but so I guess it's hard for me to see it that way, but I could definitely see if someone said that to me, I'd probably be rooting against them from there on.
Yeah. I mean, our mutual friend George Hermosa of the Wrestling Chatter, he was subject to a particular instance where I encountered the Usos, and
Oh,
I'll just leave it at that. Um, but it ended up being like the two of the NXT referees, Daryl Sharma, who is the Indian NXT referee, but his family is from Fiji, and then Antron Brewer, us becoming friends. So like,
oh,
I
that's
don't like
cool.
the Usos, but those two refs are my guys. So
The ref, that's the ref, if I'm not mistaken, that they called like the zombie ref that was dealing with Cameron Grimes. Are we thinking of the same guy?
uh,
It's like current. I don't know if you're caught up with what's going on with NXT currently, but Cameron Grimes and Dexter Loomis and their whole
yes,
thing.
that is him.
Yeah. Okay.
That's Daryl Sharma. Yep, absolutely.
All right. Very cool.
Yeah. So like if I post so I've kind of been able to weather the storm of this like 2020 year in podcasting and memes, right? So and it's nothing horrible, right? Nothing like against any particular like political party, just like dad memes essentially. And
Yeah.
I get zombie ref, you know,
Right.
that's a like. So I'm like, okay, cool, right on.
Right. Yeah, that's cool that you were able to kind of make those connections and those inroads. The refereeing, the more I learn about wrestling, the more I realize just how important all of those guys are and how big of the more you learn about wrestling, the more you realize how literally so many people are so important to so many aspects of the shows. And it makes me so much more appreciative of everything that you see happen. And especially when things go so smoothly and go so well, and you realize like, man, so many things had to happen just right for that to happen as well as it did. It's really impressive, especially, you know, you look at like the WWE and the fact that they do so much content every single week. And there's so much stuff that goes so well for them. And I know sometimes people like to nitpick the WWE or like pick apart different things. But when you just look at how simple things are, that like the cameras are always in the right spot, you know, simple things like that are so amazing. They never really mess things up that often from a putting on a show standpoint. It's incredibly impressive what they do.
Yeah, I think John Cohn and Charles Robinson kind of come to mind. Like Charles Robinson, usually at TV tapings, are never reffing the main event because he's head of like the teardown crew, you know. And
Mm-hmm.
when I found that out, I want to say it was like one of the Bakersfield tapings, right? And it was really cool, you know, because I don't know if they still do it now, but like the Bakersfield Arena is right next to the Marriott. So on TV tapings, you basically saw whoever was on the road and what have you. I have a fun interaction with the Vince McMahon that is chronicled right in the social medias. But that happened at that Marriott right next to the arena. But I basically saw Charles Robinson, like he was like in like cutoff, and dude has like guns, like I mean, almost like a wrestler. He
Mm-hmm.
was the former U.S. champion for WCW, and by God, you know that did
Yeah.
happen, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Charles Robinson is aging so well also. Like it blows my mind that he was around. Yeah, thinking about his time in WCW, which also blows my mind, was 20 years ago. Something that blew my mind, actually, again, going back to, you know, Sting obviously making his big debut in AEW yesterday, as of recording, 2 days ago, as of recording this. And someone online was like, I can't believe he's 61 years old. And to me, the thing that blew me away is I started doing the math. I was like, he was only 40 when WCW closed. And then I was thinking, like, so how young was he he was in his like 30s through the 90s? Like, that's crazy to me because I was younger at the time. So I remember thinking when WCW closed, like, man, Sting's old. But now I'm like, hey, he wasn't that old. now that I'm older, I'm like, he wasn't that old.
but when you think about it, right? I mean, to put everything into perspective, right? Sting in AEW 61.
Yeah.
Like there's only like a year difference between him and Little H.
Right. Man, the fact that they're still going is so cool to me. I don't know. I like see. I know some people you see online. Everyone's so quick to want everyone to retire and step aside and move away and make way. I like legends. I like seeing them come back. I like Sting coming back. If Undertaker wanted to come back for another match, I'd say good on you, Undertaker. I don't care how many times you retire. Come on back. I mean, if of course, if it's safe for people to do so. But if Goldberg wants to come back, I don't care. I want to see Goldberg come back. I know everyone is probably booing me and hissing at me right now, but I like Goldberg too. Bring all the legends back. Let them go as long as they want to. Because I think it's cool. I think it's cool. Like, just, you never know how. I always say you never know how long you're going to get to see your legends, and you never know when it's going to be the last time. So when they come back, just enjoy them. Just enjoy it. It might be the last time. We don't know. So enjoy it instead of complaining is what I always say.
I love it. And especially, when they want to come back, right? Because we've seen kind of, obviously, the Undertaker Last Ride kind of documentary has gone on. We're post the 30 Days of Taker, right? So theoretically speaking, I mean, with as much passion, if it's not just a payday, right? If they feel like they could still give something, right? Like Jake Roberts, right? Jake Roberts technically is still in the wrestling business, second generation wrestler, brother to Rockin' Robin and Sam Houston respectively, right? And he's still contributing, right? So if he can contribute, he's not out there trying to go a 60-minute Broadway with Moxley or Omega.
Right.
He still has something to contribute. And I'm all like, yeah, let's do that. I like it. I love it. I want some more of it.
I agree completely. Yeah. And if at the end of the day too, brass tacks, I mean, you're giving people jobs. Like, that's great. I think it's, especially in an industry where so many people talk about how it uses you up and spits you out. I mean, these are guys that have jobs that are going on late into their lives. It's great. I think it's great. And I'm a Jake the Snake fan, for instance, so I like seeing him on TV, even if it's talking for Lance Archer. I think it's great. I love it.
No, 1,000%, 1,000%. Now, I mean, while we're getting into the Legends deal, and BJ Darden said some awesome, cool things. Adam, how's your wife doing? My wife unfortunately got COVID, but it looks like she was asymptomatic, so that's a cool thing, and she's kind of back to where she used to be, so that's cool.
That's good. Good to hear she got through it. Sounds like.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Stephen Tatum wants to know, Legends versus Legends match. What is your top 3 dream matches?
Legends are like, if we're talking like, I'm guessing we mean like in their prime, like if we could get some prime stuff. I mean, I think the dream match that everyone wants to see is Sting versus Undertaker. That seems to be the one that has eluded us for forever, right? We all want to see that one. So that one stands out to me as the biggest one. As far as others, that's a good question. I think I would like to see some mixing of kind of more older school and new school people. So like, I'd love to see someone like a Bret Hart have a match with one of the more technical people, like a Kenny Omega today, or a Shawn Michaels Kenny Omega would obviously be really cool to see as well. I think because I'm a big Kenny Omega fan, I think he has great matches. I'm not really a small club of people who say Kenny Omega has good matches, but I think Kenny Omega has great matches. So I think like Shawn Michaels, Kenny Omega would be great to see. But I also think Kenny Omega, Bret Hart would be great to see because it's two legends from the same time that are very different. Having a match with someone who's considered a legend today, having those matches, and just be fun to see how they kind of interact with each other there. The pure spectacle side of me obviously would love to see a Hulk Hogan John Cena match, though.
Those aren't bad at all. It's weird. I kind of like visualize like not just like what it looks like in the ring, but also like the promo posters and T-shirts and everything like that. That's a marketing like gold mine that you've just stumbled on. So I think it looks.
Yeah, AJ Styles with just anyone. Also, I feel like he has a good match with anyone he's in the ring with. So throw him in there as well. Why not?
Yeah, dude, I go a little bit like geekier. So I would like to see what would like Billy Robinson, against Kurt Angle,
Mhm.
what that would look like. Like
Oh
you
yeah,
see,
Kurt Angle would have a lot of good matches too. Jeez.
yeah. Or I mean, a Billy Robinson, or Iron Sheik on his prime versus AJ. That would be crazy. You know.
Yeah, that would be interesting. Oh, or since throwing him out there, Samoa Joe versus a Vader would be kind of fun to see too. Just two big unstoppable forces going at each other. I think would be fun to see.
Oh, I love that. Oh, that's goosebumps
So
inducing.
yeah,
My goodness. I,
yeah.
I just want you, like, maybe at AEW or WWE, just like somebody having the purse strings. And I mean, and the way that we could do it, just hosting a show. There used to be that the show on Spike TV, the Deadliest Warrior, right? And they
Hmm.
had two warriors of different time periods and them in their prime, and they basically simulated like 1,000 matches and based on weapons and everything. Like, I see Jack Farmer hosting a show of like
I'd love
100.
that. That would be really fun to do, to see who would and then maybe we turn it into a tournament and we find out who the ultimate wrestler is. It becomes tricky though, because you got to find out like when we're talking, because certain wrestlers have different stat levels at different levels in their careers. The Rock, for instance, I feel like his stat levels are different depending on if we're talking about Hollywood Rock or if we're talking about like prime uh prime run Rock.
Yeah,
Actually, I don't know. They're both pretty unstoppable.
yeah, and it looks like the Hollywood Rock ate, like literally ate the Brahma Bull Rock, and has become twice the big, that he used to be, which is kind of crazy. Maybe it's the Terramana tequila. I don't know.
Yeah, someone on Facebook or somewhere, someone posted that scene from when him, Hogan, and Kane were all together doing a promo, and Kane was like the Hulkamaniacs and the millions of fans and the Canaanites or whatever.
Yes.
Uh, um, and The Rock was there. I remember thinking, geez, he looks tiny. I mean, at the time, I didn't think he looked tiny, but like looking back, I'm like, he doesn't look big at all. That's crazy. It's crazy to think that we thought he was, fit enough to be champion back then compared to how he looks now. It'd be interesting to see how different he would have been, how different his career would have looked if he was the size he is now while he was wrestling. Like if they would have if he would have been completely different, because he would have then now he'd be a big monster kind of person, right?
Yeah, I would think. I kind of harken back to the original Rock, Don Morocco, and I think
Yeah.
that's what we would have gotten. I mean, obviously, Don Morocco has like not even an eighth of the charisma that the Rock, Dwayne Johnson has, but I think it would be similar. Maybe he wasn't as agile, right? If he had packed on that mass, like
Mm-hmm.
running for a movie, is different than taking bumps, 300 or two, at the very least 280 days a year. So
Right.
that's what I'm going with.
Yeah, I mean, you're probably right. It'd be interesting to see how different that would be. But yeah, he is such a big fella now. I mean, it almost looks fake. He's so big, but good for him. I mean, I have no idea how much he works out. He must work out a lot. I think it's the tequila. I think you nailed it. I think it's the tequila.
That's it. So there's a quick plug for Terramana, and if you are looking to get into sponsoring podcasts, I mean, Jack Farmer and According to Woods may have just what you need. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I feel like we could bump the number of tequila drinkers up by at least 2 or 3. I think it's worth all the advertising in the world. No, I think it'd be a great idea to advertise on your show. Because then you could get it out there to people who are fans of him. I think you should get a promo code from them. I think it's a great connection.
So again, Dwayne Johnson, you have your people call my people, and we'll work something out. I'm just saying.
I think it's a match made in heaven. I think there's money to be made for everybody involved, and I think there's good drinks to be sold as well. So it's win-win-win.
Win. All we do is win. But I mean, you win. I mean, I am so honored that you are. ardent representation of our pro wrestling community across, again, whether it be AfterBuzz, whether it be, United Wrestling Network and their outing. So
Mhm.
you're obviously a huge historian, right? And
Yeah,
but
I like to think so.
yeah, I think you are. So how did you become involved in getting in the business end of, I guess, the business?
Yeah, I should say before we say I'm a historian, it's hard to really feel that way. We both know George Hermosa, who is the most encyclopedic, knowledgeable person I've ever met in my life in pro wrestling. You can say like a date, and he'll tell you every match that happened on that date off the top of his head. It's insane. So I used to think I was quite the historian until I talked to him, and then I realized no, there's different levels to knowing your wrestling history. But I guess as far as doing it, the first like real, I guess, earnestly doing it was with Afterbuzz TV, and I got involved with Afterbuzz honestly because I know Flobo Boyce, who I think we're mutual friends with as well. I knew him because we're both DJs, and so we were DJing events together for a while. And you're driving back and forth from gigs, and eventually wrestling comes up, and we totally started nerding out about pro wrestling, because you know how it is. Like when you're talking to someone, you find out they also like pro wrestling. Suddenly it like opens up this whole can of worms to talk about pro wrestling. And so we would talk about it all the time. And he had mentioned he was on AfterBuzz. And so I started watching AfterBuzz because I was like, oh, one, I want to support my buddy. And two, I want to just, see what this is about. And so I was watching it. And then eventually he was like, hey, you should try out to be on it. And so I was able to go to AfterBuzz. I auditioned and went through their classes and host training. And I got really lucky. I was able to get a spot. At first I was a fill-in role on the Raw after show. And then George saw me and was like, hey, why don't you come to the pay-per-views and do the after shows for pay-per-views? And then I got on Raw, and it's really weird because at AfterBuzz, a lot of the shows sort of manage themselves. And so I didn't get like an official, you're a part of the AfterBuzz hosting. And I actually didn't feel for like, it was like 6 months before I felt like I was actually part of the show. I kept thinking I was just filling in for people. And I kept thinking, well, when someone comes back, I'm going to be off the show. I'm just filling in for now. But I was fortunate. I was able to do that for a long time. And then started doing some shows of my own. And then the opportunity to work with United Wrestling Network came up, and that's been a dream come true. I mean, I'm still pretty new there, but it's been absolutely a dream come true. I love working there. Everyone there has been amazing, and the people that run that place are so good at what they do. I just like getting to watch and learn and see just how everything operates. It's been really cool.
Now, have you had I guess it would be like a OMG moment where you're like, I can't believe I'm doing this, or interviewing a particular wrestler?
It was, I mean, the first big wrestler I got to interview was through AfterBuzz, and it was Scorpio Sky. And Scorpio Sky, by the way, could not be a nicer guy. I was really fortunate he was the first person I got to talk to, because he also kind of helped get through the interviews. You do a lot of interviews, so when you first start, you think you know what you're doing, but you don't really know what you're doing. Where he was great at sort of helping to get through the interview and making it interesting and making it good. That was my first big one. I think as a fan, the biggest one that really made me kind of like, wow, this is incredible, was I got to chat with Eric Bischoff. And again, as a NWO fan, as a WCW fan. And that was George Hermosa who helped kind of make that happen, because he does After 83 Weeks with Steve Kaufman and Christy Olsen. Both Steve and George, I guess I got to fill in for a day on that show. And so again, I always think like 13-year-old Jack was losing his mind during this, but it's cool. I got to chat with Vince Russo as well. So I got to talk to the two guys that sort of managed WCW through the final years. And Vince Russo was great too. I know he's kind of a controversial person to talk about, but he was always very nice, very generous, and very good to me. So I have nothing but good things to say about Vince Russo as well. But even at United Wrestling Network, what was cool is, like I said, Danny Limelight was one of the first people I got to chat with for their show. And one of the things that's hard to prepare for is you go into these things and you think, okay, I'm going to come up with questions. I'm going to try to hit my times, etc. Especially with someone like Danny Limelight, it's hard to prepare and be ready for someone who's going to be that quick-witted, that smart, that good on a microphone, and be able to keep up with them. And fortunately, he's so good that he was able to basically just take whatever, I can't remember what my question for him was, but he's able to take that and make it just an incredible and interesting promo. Also, his buddy Papo scares me to death, but he was there as well, and it's really cool. And like I said, I don't know if it's the OMG moment, but it's just incredible to see how talented all these people really are.
That's incredible. And I mean, we started off talking about Danny Limelight, and his, aerial acumen and how he is in the ring. But I mean, the promos, that's another, I mean, talk about the whole package. And you were talking about it, having a particular stock in a particular wrestler in terms of forging what would be the future of what the business will look like. I can't see, like, to me, he's as close to the total package, not Lex Luger,
Right.
that you can
get. No, he's not very much like Lex Luger. I'll agree with that. He doesn't share a lot of commonalities with Lex Luger, but yeah, and especially in this, as we go into this next generation of wrestling too, that I think it embraces authentic people, and this current generation, it embraces authenticity and talent and hard work. And I think he's all of those things. He's not someone that is just pretending to be something for the sake of a TV show. He's super, like I said, super talented, super great on a microphone. And I think AEW is giving him a look. He's on AEW Dark, so they're clearly taking notice. They're giving him a look. I don't know anything about what's going on with that, but I know if I was signing contracts at AEW, I would definitely be putting one in front of him very soon, because now that he's been on AEW Dark, the world has seen him, and it's only a matter of time.
Yeah, which I want to believe Tony Khan and the Bucks and Omega, all of the, the front office brass at AEW are maybe looking at this particular podcast, because when Danny, as well as Lindsay Snow, the Kaiju warrior, essentially cut their teeth on AEW Dark, and I was like, hey, those are two people I had on the show. Maybe, just maybe, somewhere in Florida, that the Bucks and what have you are watching this podcast.
Well, if they're not, they should be, because you're all clearly getting these people on the show before they make it big. You could be their sneak peek into what they need to be doing.
That might put me into, I was going to say somebody, but I think that's off air. But if a certain Raven, not of Edgar Allan Poe proportions, but
right.
Yeah, that guy. That guy.
I was a big Raven fan growing up as well, by the way.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it sounds like you've got the hot ticket on the future stars. You're getting them all on the shows.
Well, it's kind of funny. This podcast, like, it kind of existed to an extent or another about 4 years, right? And it would just be when I was in between, like, working MMA shows and what have you, like, I would go on Facebook Live or Instagram when that became a thing, right? And then I was on a couple of my friends, like, MMA podcasts, and they were like, oh, we use StreamYard. You should use it too. I was like, okay. And that happened, like, literally July of this year. And we're kind of like 210 episodes in.
Very cool. Well, yeah, and I always think that's the key to any type of creative endeavor like this too, is I think so many people will do something and they'll do it once or twice, and then they say, oh, I'm not Joe Rogan, guess I better quit. And they stop doing it. But when you keep doing it, people tend to notice, I think, not just because you're consistent, but because you get better at it. And then you start to get that traction. And then something I always joke around with Flobo about is then that's when everyone looks at you and goes, oh, he's so lucky. He gets to talk with these people. And you're like, no, it's not luck. It's the fact that I did it for 200 episodes and now I've figured it out and made it work. But kudos to you for being able to do that and for being able to get these people on. That's awesome.
No, but I think not just you, but the rest of the AfterBuzz crew, because I'd be coming back from Commerce Casino, after an MMA show or San Diego, and then I would pop on AfterBuzz, and I would see you, I'd see Flobo, I'd see George Hermosa, TK Trinidad, Emily May, the Sarah the Rebel, the list goes on and on, Leslie Colon, right? So I was just like, at some point, I want to have you guys on, and I'm you've definitely checked one of the major boxes in terms of getting AfterBuzz people in, because I knew of you. We had more mutual friends, and for somebody that especially is in the entertainment biz and pro wrestling, you can kind of combine them or keep them separate if you like. Nobody has. You are almost like an Owen Hart, and because nobody has anything bad to say about you, and you bring joy to everyone you come across with. So I was like, when Jack Farmer says hey, I'm free to do a podcast, we're doing a podcast.
Yeah, very cool. Well, thank you. And you're right. All the people that you'd mentioned are all incredible people as well. One, I got to say, if you can get Leslie on the show, you should, because your numbers will go through the roof, because she has the biggest family on planet Earth, and she gets every one of them to tune in. We always joke around about if she's a guest on a show, everyone's numbers spike whenever she's on the show.
Oh, I have, and I did, and that exactly happened. Literally, her sister from the other room was just chiming on, and then once her sister, it became this cool little labyrinth where she jumped on, and then I guess she might have shared it and whatever, and I had 5 kind of colognes on the podcast in the chat. So I was like, this is cool.
We when for a while it was just Flobo, myself, and Leslie doing the Raw after show, I believe, and we kept saying we were the Black Eyed Peas and she's the Fergie. No one cares about the other members; they just care about Fergie. But I also want to give a shout out to Emily May. She's also with United Wrestling Network and has done some interviews and things as well as there, but she does so much backstage at United Wrestling Network and Primetime Live. And she's been a huge help to me as well backstage, getting acclimated back there and meeting people and trying to find my footing back there. So huge shout out to her as well, because she's been super helpful to me.
No, 100%. And I love that you mentioned that. And they've all been on this very podcast. I think you were the last one where I was just
I was the one you had to do just to finish the set. Is that
no,
you were
no. I knew it was going to be fun. I didn't anticipate how fun it would be. So I was just I think you're if you're talking about NES wrestling video games, right? You're at the top of the mountain with that kind of silhouette of light with the Windy Eagle kind of appearance. That's what Jack Farmer is.
Okay, I'll take it. But yeah, lots of great people came through AfterBuzz. But the thing at the end of the day that I always say is so important with all this stuff, like I said, is just getting reps in and practicing and I think when you do that, that's how you get to the levels where you can get noticed by places and get like you've been able to do and get guests on and things like that. Have you ever gone back and looked at some of your first episodes?
Oh, yeah. Oh my gosh, that's bad. The Josh Barnett one. I had I mean, it didn't rival his beard, but I had full on quarantine beard. It was yeah, and I was just I mean, the look of it, I didn't have a ring light. I stuttered more than I would have liked to. So I was just but obviously they serve as lessons, right? But what was yours? Do you have those?
My first, looking back on just the AfterBuzz episode, I can't remember what the date was, but anyways, it was, I actually looked at it a little bit recently, and the amount of I had, I said absolutely a lot for some reason. That was off the charts, and it's just a lot of things that you just don't get that you start to learn, you start to figure out, and understanding again how to keep conversations going and whatnot. You go back and you look and you're just like, oh wow, I thought I was great then, but now looking back, I'm realizing, wow, I had so much to learn. And I guess that's maybe a good mentality to have, because now when I do things, I'm like, okay, I can still learn. I can still get better than this. I can still do a better job of this. That's where I felt with, that's where I'm at with Universal Wrestling Network right now in Primetime Live. I think I want to do as many reps as I can, because I got to get better at doing these things, because it's a whole different skill set. And so but it's fun, but it's also like, man, I got to get better. I got to do a better job. I got to, prove myself and earn my spot. And I still, even there, at Primetime Live, I still even have the same mentality that I had at AfterBuzz Raw, where I keep thinking, am I going to be back next week? And I always ask David Marquez before I leave. I said, so you want me back next week? What, right? He said, yes, come back next week. Like, okay. Just making sure.
But I mean, that's a true and blue creative type, where the people around you, or even outwardly, would see the brilliance and the genius, but like you're like, that wasn't good. That wasn't good, pal.
Yeah, we all have. I think creatives always have that thing where I was talking with someone about the other day, where no matter how good you do, there's always that one thing that gets you, and then it like rattles around in your brain forever. The one thing that no one else even noticed, but you notice, and it just haunts you. And I think that's just part of being a creative, though, is you never feel like you actually nailed it.
No, 100%. And Demo says, Jack,
Demo,
yes, saw you on AfterBuzz TV's wrestling channel. He brings great energy when covering pro wrestling, and will shine at anything he does. Wishing you all of the best and luck, Jack. So thank you.
Demo, thank you.
I do concur.
Yeah. Well, I won't argue. I'll keep it's been a fun journey. I like to think this is still the beginning, but so far I feel like it's just been a fun journey. I've been having the time of my life. It's been great.
It looks like it. I almost want to scream it from the rooftop. I've had the time of my life. That's a good jab. But
yes.
Before we go, Stephen Tatum wants to know, but we might have talked about it already, but thoughts on what looks to be the AEW and Impact partnership. Obviously, Don Callis coming in to help Kenny Omega, one of your favorite wrestlers right now. So it looks like there might be something. I mean, Don Callis literally alluded, like, we'll see him Tuesday. And I think it was, I can't remember who it was interviewing, but they were like, wait, we do it on Wednesday. And it's like, no, Impact. Like, that's where it's going to happen. So your thoughts?
Yeah, Alex Marvez, I believe, was the one doing the interview in that one. I am blown away. I am so excited about this. That moment was one of the biggest feelings of like, this is big, that I've had in wrestling for a very, very long time. And I don't know what it's going to be. It might be a one-time thing. I know as us wrestling fans, it's fun to, kind of put the cart before the horse and start fantasy booking everything all at once. But already, I feel like this is massive. If they can do it right, it could be one of the biggest things in pro wrestling that we've seen in a very, very long time. Even if I know certain, even if maybe not a lot of people are watching Impact, I think that now they will be. I think that it's going to generate a lot of buzz. I like to go even further and start thinking about the fact that Kenny Omega's got a match in Mexico coming up soon. What if AAA gets involved? And then Kenta's been on Twitter calling out Jon Moxley, and there's the whole Wrestle Kingdom thing. What if New Japan gets involved? And then I'm like, oh my goodness, what if this becomes a massive, super worldwide super card? How cool could that be? But again, I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm overthinking it. It's probably not all that. But I would say that, I think it's win-win for everybody. If you tried to get on impactwrestling.com last night or on Wednesday after it happened, it crashed. Too many people were looking at it. So I think it's already a win. And I saw online people were saying, well, what does AEW gain from this? Impact's going to get viewers, but what does AEW gain? AEW is gaining interest. It's gaining buzz. And if they do it right, even even though they're working with a company that's smaller, it's still going to be big for them because it's generating buzz and interest. I think it's going to be good for everybody involved.
Yes, and especially at a time where, I mean, Impact, I had been personally down on them when they lost AJ. Right, that was like, oh, when you lose like two of your biggest, I would say AJ more than Samoa Joe, because Samoa Joe was already a champion in Ring of Honor. So I would say AJ, your biggest homegrown star, and you lose him. I'm like, but they have gotten so much better. Rosemary is one of the most compelling performers that there is in wrestling today, and has been for quite a while. I mean, just talk about outside the box type things, and they're putting out probably their best content since, you know, those originals like AJ and Christopher Daniels and Frankie Kazarian left. So like I cannot wait. I think this becomes like the Invasion, what we wanted it to be, and especially with, you know, we hear about all of the people that the Invasion could have been booked this way and that way and what have you, right? The WCW invasion of the WWF. But I think we're going to get a little bit of what we missed in that particular scenario.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think Impact has been doing a lot of great things. I think they've been doing themselves a lot of good favors recently by building up a lot of steam, getting a lot of interest, especially since they've come back from the break. And right now, I think the only real issue they have is that they're big enough that everyone who's on there gets noticed, and that means all the other companies want to start cherry picking their talent. Is the only problem they're at, that they're really at with all that. But their production looks great. They stand out. They look different. They have a ton of great wrestlers, which is why so many people are trying to take their wrestlers. They have a lot of former Lucha Underground people, and I was a huge Lucha Underground fan, so I like that as well. But yeah, I think it's going to be great. I think it's, even like I said, even if it's just like one or two matches, it's going to be fun and it's interesting and it's different and it's something we haven't seen since the Invasion, at least not on a big scale. I mean, I know that on smaller scales it's happened, but on a network TV level, we haven't seen it. Two network, exactly. So I think everybody wins here. I think everybody wins. It's going to be great. And like I said, even if we get to see like the North versus FTR, how great is that going to be? You know, like that's crazy. Sami Callihan versus John Moxley, crazy. That's going to be great. It's going to be, you know, Motor City Machine Guns versus the Young Bucks again. That'll be great. Like you could almost get the Bullet Club back together. You know, I mean, you know, it's great. It's wins all around.
No, I agree 100%. Man, I want you booking. I want Jack Farmer booking.
You don't want me booking. I would be no good at it. I have no patience. I'd be like, tomorrow, the biggest matches of the year. Yeah, it would. Yeah, I would be like literally like this week. All the match I just said, it would be happening this week on time. I have no patience. I like it when wrestling companies do the slow stuff, and so like it builds up. But like me personally, I'd be like, tonight, it's happening tonight.
I will. I mean, there are worse things. You know, there are worse things that could happen. And Demo says, since Lana was the sole survivor at the Survivor Series match, do you ever see the WWE putting the Raw Women's title on her?
I'd like to see it. I think she's gotten the fans behind her. I think Lana, has always been an underappreciated talent for them, whether it be getting the people to hate her, because people hated her when they hate her. And now I think the fans are getting behind her because of going through the table over and over and over again. And because of the fact that I think people believe that there's some animosity between her and the WWE over Miro. I don't think there really is. I think that's just us fans projecting. But I think that right now she's a talent. People like her. People are behind her. I don't see why not. And it's fresh. We haven't, she's someone who hasn't had the title, and it's not the same few people that kind of trade the title back and forth for the past few years. I like everyone who has the women's title, but you know what I mean? It's always one of the four horsewomen or like Asuka. So it'd be nice to see someone else have it.
an injection of new blood is not bad, not bad at all. You know, an infusion of a new character in the title scene, and it could even be a change of character to the title scene. And I think it's awesome. You know, it's something that could propel the company into the next lexicon.
Yeah, it's very hard to get people to love someone and hate someone within the course of a year. And she's been able to be completely hated. She's been able to be loved. I don't know what else she needs to prove. I mean, why not? What's the worst that can happen? You know, give her the shot. I think if she gets it, it'd be good. It'd be fun. And I think people would enjoy it. And if people are enjoying it, then I think it's good.
There you go. I like it. Which Steve Tatum wants to know, do you watch any other wrestling podcasts, Jack? And if you do, what would they be?
I hop in and out of them. I don't have any that I listen to every single week just because there's so much wrestling to catch up on. But the one I like the most that I listen to probably most regularly, I don't know if you'd call it a podcast. I like Ups and Downs. I like Simon Miller. I like that he's typically positive and typically fun. I tend to lean positive on how I feel about wrestling. So I like that. Yeah. I got to chat with Simon Miller as well. That was another really fun moment to get to interview him. And he's a incredibly fun guy as well. So I really enjoy him. I enjoy his takes on things. I enjoy the fact, like I said, that he's positive about wrestling. I think wrestling is one of those things. It's so easy to kind of become an expert and a critic and pick apart every little thing that happens. And sometimes it's fair. I'm not going to lie. I don't think everything's perfect, but I like that he kind of approaches everything from it's pro wrestling. Let's just have fun mindset. So I don't know if you count that as a podcast, but that's probably the one I enjoy the most. But I listen to a lot of them. I usually will pop in and listen to different ones, and I'll listen to an episode, and then I'll listen to someone else's, things like that.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. And What Culture, if you guys haven't subscribed, definitely, we both will give our vote of endorsement with that, whatever that means. That is subjective. But yeah, I mean, What Culture, and they do have a podcast, so you can check that out at wherever you would get your podcasts from. And I would like to throw another one of our mutual friends and an Afterbuzz alum, Steve Kaufman. Steve Kaufman is literally ruling everything that is Conrad Thompson's, podcast universe on YouTube. And so we mentioned a lot of Afterbuzz alumni, and rightfully so. But I mean, Steve Kaufman is one that I definitely want to highlight. He's a good friend of ours. Just an incredible person, but literally doing like the Lord's work, because bringing us JR, Arn Anderson, Ric Flair, Eric Bischoff, and Tony Schiavone. Right? I think that I might be missing one, but
he is like low key one of the most connected people I know. But he does a lot of stuff. He's also one of the smartest people I know. He's always one of those guys that I want to ask him questions or pick his brain, and then he always gives me this next level kind of information that I wasn't ready for, I'll be like, oh, so how can I get more followers on Twitter? And I expect him to just say, put hashtag follow for follow, and that'll do it. But he's like, well, this is how the algorithm works, and then you're going to need to do this to help do that. And it's like, whoa, you've got all this stuff that's so much beyond what I was thinking. It's incredible. Like, he'll talk about if you're talking about YouTube, he'll talk about these video farms and things like this. And it's incredible just the amount of knowledge he has. And so once you talk to him just for a little bit about it, you understand why people like Eric Bischoff and why Conrad Thompson work with him, because he's so smart at what he's doing. But yeah, incredible guy, really cool guy, really nice guy. And also one of those guys that would go out of his way to help you out if you needed it, which is what makes him really great.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned Rogan earlier in the podcast, but I mean, when I talk to Steve Kaufman, it's like Rogan, that episode with Elon Musk, where he sits back and simmers, and what he kind of serves to you is like nuggets of genius that I don't think have ever occurred in wrestling before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's a great example of it. Yeah. Where he'll ask a question that you think is if you ask him a question you think is simple or that should have a simple answer, he's going to give you something so much more intelligent than you expected. And it's, yeah. And he's a very accessible and great guy as well too. Like he's not like, you know, a lot of times when people are that talented, they're difficult to talk to, but he's very much like, if you hit him up, he'll be like, oh yeah, for sure, let me help you out. And you're like, oh yeah. Wow, that's great.
Yeah, no, 100%, man. But obviously, you have been able to ascend to where you are because there have been many people to kind of not just see your talent, but take interest in you. So I want you to get some shout outs out of the way, my man.
Yeah, a few people we've talked about already. The first and foremost, the biggest one I got to give out is Flobo Boyce. I mean, one, he connected me obviously with Afterbuzz TV, but even Afterbuzz, they took a break during the summer, as they've said. They're still on break, and I guess it's still TBD on when it's coming back. But he's someone that really helped me get things going on my own as far as producing my own content and creating my own stuff. And he's someone that's always willing to help out and help you figure things out if you can't figure things out. And, you know, like talking about StreamYard versus other options, he's someone that he'll help you kind of figure that stuff out as well. He's always down to do shows. He's always down to help co-promote. He's always down to give you any advice. So I definitely got to give him kind of the first piece of love. I got to give George Hermosa some love as well in the wrestling chatter, because he's the first one that gave me a steady gig at AfterBuzz, which was doing the pay-per-views and pay-per-view commentary there, and also having me on the wrestling chatter. And because of him, I got to talk to guys like Jonathan Coachman, which was really cool, and Vampiro. I had a really cool interview with Vampiro just because of him. And Vampiro said I asked it twice. He said I asked him the best questions he's ever been given, which is actually a really cool moment as well. But so I definitely got to give George Hermosa a bunch of love. And I also got to give everyone from the Raw after show panel at AfterBuzz a bunch of love. I got to give, and I'm going to forget people. I'm totally worried about it. Leslie, Heel Jim, Evan Mack. I got to give Evan Mack love too, yes, for having me on the Everything tournament that we do. Evan Mack, just the energy level he brings to everything is inspiring. I wouldn't be nearly able to do what I do without him, because he's one of those guys you feel like you bring energy and then he comes in and you're like, oh no, I got to bring it up. I got to bring it up. And so Evan Mack, I gotta give love to. Leslie, of course, Steve Kaufman, Christy Olsen as well has been very gracious to me. Roger from the AEW after show, and Jessica and Anissa, and of course Josh in the booth, and Ryan in the booth, and all those guys. And I hope I'm not forgetting someone. I'm sure I am. TK as well. And then of course everyone over at UWN, and David Marquez for taking a chance on a guy like me. My cousin Matt for getting me into wrestling, and he actually sent David a message as well to kind of help put in a good word for me. They know each other, so that was helpful as well. But there's so many people to say thank you for too. I always trip up over all this kind of stuff. My parents as well, just for being the kind of parents that are supportive of anything I do, even if they don't get it. They don't get the whole wrestling thing. They never got it my entire life. They don't get the DJing thing. They still don't get it, but they're also very much like, but hey, you sound like you're having fun, so keep at it. So I got to thank them for giving me that mindset as well. I'll say Heidi Mack as well. She's also on the Everything tournament, so I'll put her in there as well.
Wait. You said it before, but your cousin is Matt Farmer?
Matt Farmer, yeah. With Defy Wrestling?
Yes.
In the Pacific Northwest? Yeah.
Oh God. That's cool.
Do you know Matt Farmer?
Yes. We're friends on Facebook, but I mean, like, I haven't made a formal introduction. I came across him, obviously, with like the Court Bauer MLW family of podcasts that ended up becoming a large part of what Conrad Thompson does. So, yeah, I think that's cool. You guys both reside in the same family. He's the one that got me into. He's the one that got me into pro wrestling. Like I said, he'd bring over tapes when I was a kid, and I'd watch the tapes, and I say the Royal Rumble was when I first became a fan.
I probably saw a ton of them before that, but that's just the one I remember. But yeah, Matt Farmer with Defy Wrestling doing some amazing stuff. Of course, now I sound like I'm just shilling for my family member, but Defy really is doing some really, really cool stuff, and a lot of great talent came from there. Swerve came from there, who's one of my favorites in NXT right now. But yeah, lots of great stuff happening at Defy as well. So, but yeah, Matt Farmer.
That is awesome. That is amazing. Two incredible human beings, two incredible like pantheons of pro wrestling history. Same family. That's just, I mean, literally, Matt. I mean, your cousin Matt's show on MLW would just be like pro wrestling history, and that's. I borrowed many of his anecdotes in a lot of done. So shout out to Matt and Defy, because it is one of my favorite wrestling promotions, and that's not. I'm not related to him. Like, it's legit. It's legit.
It's great. Yeah, he definitely before he started wrestling, he definitely practiced a lot of wrestling moves on me as a youngster. So I knew so I knew he was going to be great at it once he got in there when he started wrestling. But yeah, he's done a lot more in wrestling than I have, though. I don't know if it's fair to compare us in any way. But yeah, he's doing great stuff, whether MLW or Defy Wrestling or everything else he's doing. Now he's a historian as well, so I can't. Now he's like a legit historian that like talks. That he knows like attendance gates from 1937 in New York. But yeah, he is obviously super influential on me in getting involved in wrestling.
I think it's absolutely brilliant. And I just had a concept of a show of like Matt and Hermosa and a wrestling trivia like knowledge off. Like that's we're gonna have that.
See, when you know both those people, you stop thinking yourself as a historian. You start going, I mean, I know some wrestling, but I don't know if I know that much. But yeah,
no, that's absolutely great. I mean, my goodness. But obviously, you know, to find out more about what you're doing, I mean, you do amazing things always, you know, but where can people find you on social media?
Yeah, you can find me at Real Jack Farmer across all social media. You can also check out some shows I'm doing. I do the Anytime radio show every Monday. It's a radio show where I play different music from different genres, all decades, all genres. Most of it's by request. So if you want to make a request, you can just hit me up at Real Jack Farmer or at Anytime Radio across all social media as well. Also doing the Everything Tournament, which is done by Evan Mack and Heidi Mack and Flobo and myself. And we take all things from pop culture and we just debate every single little thing until we whittle it down to what one winner is and what the greatest thing is in all of everything. This tournament, this round, it's all Marvel Cinematic Universe stuff. So what we'll do is we'll have things like Captain America's shield versus Doctor Strange's cape, right? And then we debate which one is better. And then the viewers and listeners will vote, and the winner moves on to the next round. And then it will go against like the movie Winter Soldier versus, again, whatever, like the Black Panther's car or whatever. You know, it's like just random things. It's different aspects of it until we get to the last one. This is the 7th tournament. So former winners that weren't Marvel related or things like the Donut won. The Backstreet Boys have won a tournament. There's been a bunch of other. Steven Spielberg won a tournament. It's basically anything. We just argue nonsense. It's a lot of fun. But then I also do wrestling recap shows. Elite of the Week, where we talk about AEW, and Draped in Gold, where it's all NXT. And then United Wrestling Network has taken a bit of a hiatus during the holidays, but once we come back, I'll be there as well. So, and this weekend, one last thing. This weekend, I am going to be a guest speaker at the Q Up DJ conference, where we're giving advice to young aspiring DJs. So if you're looking at becoming a DJ, or if you are a DJ and looking to grow your brand and your business, check out the Q Up DJ Summit this weekend.
Ooh, you definitely got to follow Jack and everything that he's doing. And again, even at 200 plus episodes in, you guys make me feel like I need to do like 50 more this week. So, and it's Friday. So
No, that's Flobo. Flobo does, like, I always say, he does more content than the WWE each week. He's doing all sorts of stuff. But you got 200 episodes. You're doing just fine.
That's it. Again, thank you, but I'm gonna work to. And Flobo actually tried to get me into AfterBuzz like about a little over a year ago too. So I feel like you guys are my contemporaries, and I've got a hell of a lot of work to kind of catch up to where I could even be invited to the table. So,
dude, you're the one interviewing all these people. I think you're doing just fine. We got to catch up to you.
You're too kind, my man. You're too kind. But again, thank you for joining us. I mean, this has been incredible, absolutely incredible. And just to know that, like, I've got another friend who also likes the thing that I like too, which is awesome, because this year has been like a year of like people like arguing over differences and everything like that. And you even do a podcast where you argue differences and have fun with it. So it's amazing.
Yeah, I definitely recommend check that Everything tournament. It's so, like I said, it's total nonsense, especially once we get into the things that aren't comparable. Is when it gets really fun, because like this one, it's all Marvel Universe theme, but usually it's just whatever. And so it'll literally be stuff like a Tesla or Backstreet Boys. Like, how do you, which one's better? Like, and it becomes total nonsense, and it almost always just goes off the rails, because how do you argue those two things? But the viewers decide. So if you tune in live, you get to have a vote, and it comes down to the votes. I have no say. I just got to go with whatever the viewers say.
That's it. I mean, it's viewers' choice and everything that Jack Farmer does, man. But dude, thank you so much for joining us here at According to Woods. Thank you guys for watching and listening and chiming in on the comment section. And if you haven't already done so, we warmly encourage you to go ahead and subscribe to the According to Woods podcast on both Facebook and YouTube. I mean, Jack, you're subscribed, right?
I am, absolutely. And in fact, I'm going to go ahead and make sure I'm going to leave a comment. I'm going to hit the like button, and I'm going to share it with my friends, as well as make sure that subscribe button is clicked.
Dang right. And I mean, you put it so eloquently enough, more eloquently than I could ever do. But if you don't believe me or Jack Farmer, here's Zeta Zhang for you.
Hey, this is Zeta